There's a strange moment that happens to a lot of people, not during a crisis, not when things fall apart. It happens when life is fine. The bills are handled, the routines work, you're not chasing anything urgently anymore. And yet, somewhere in the background, there's a quiet sense that time feels different now, not scarce, just heavier. Most people don't talk about this, because nothing is wrong enough to complain about. So they assume this feeling will pass, or that the next upgrade will smooth it out. If that were true, this moment wouldn't keep returning in different forms. This video isn't asking you to fix anything, it's asking you to slow down enough to notice what this moment might actually be pointing at, not as a problem, as a boundary. If you're watching this quickly, it will sound like words. If you stay, something subtler may start to register. Have you noticed how this belief survives so easily? Not because it's completely wrong, but because it works just enough. Think about the early years, long hours, constant pressure, a sense that everything depends on the next step. In that phase, more money, more comfort, more control actually does change how you feel. Life gets lighter, breathing room appears. So the mind draws a simple line. This is the direction. And for a while it's true. You upgrade your living space, your calendar becomes manageable. You're no longer anxious about the basics. That relief feels like fulfillment, or close enough that no one questions it. Even the people around you confirm it. You seem calmer, more settled, less reactive. From the outside, it looks like arrival. But notice what's subtle here. The improvement is real, yet it comes from problems being removed, not from something being added. The tension drops because pressure drops. The mind quiets because fewer things demand attention. It's peace by subtraction. And subtraction has a limit. At some point, there's nothing obvious left to fix, no urgent fires, no dramatic lack, just a stable, well-run life. That's when the question gets uncomfortable. Not, what's missing? But, why did this stop deepening? There's no failure in this moment, no mistake, just a quiet pause where the old logic keeps working, only flatter than before. And most people keep applying it anyway, not because they're unaware, but because it worked yesterday. Here's a quiet question most people never ask. What if nothing is wrong with your effort, but the direction itself has a ceiling? You can see this in very ordinary places. Take a smartphone. The first upgrade feels dramatic, faster, cleaner, easier. The next one helps, but less. After a while, you're paying more for details you barely notice, not because the phone is bad, because the function has been mostly fulfilled. Life has similar zones. Once safety is handled, once daily friction is reduced, each improvement still works. But it doesn't change the quality of being alive in the same way. Yet we keep investing there, because that's the area we know how to improve. There are clear steps, clear rewards, clear measurements. Inner stability doesn't work like that. You can't optimize it with better tools. You can't outsource it, and it doesn't automatically grow just because the outer structure is strong. So when life shifts, a role changes, a relationship ends, the body slows down. Something gets tested, not your intelligence, not your effort. Something quieter. Some people bend without breaking, others feel strangely unprepared, even though they did everything right. It's not about age or bad luck. It's about whether something inside was being built while everything outside was improving. And that raises an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe the real deadline in life isn't about what you accomplish, but about what you quietly postpone developing. Let me ask you something simple. When was the last time you actually noticed your breathing? Not thought about it, not controlled it, not used it to calm down, just noticed it. Most people say, I know how breathing works. Of course you do. You don't need instructions. But knowing isn't the same as contact. You can go an entire day talking, driving, working, while breath is happening almost like background noise in a cafe, present, but never met. Then sometimes, without planning it, you pause, maybe waiting in line, maybe sitting alone in the car. And suddenly the body exhales more deeply, the chest softens, the jaw loosens. Nothing was solved, no insight was added. Yet something shifted. That shift didn't come from understanding. It came from being there when it happened. This is where many people get confused. They collect explanations, they agree with ideas, they recognize patterns. And still, when life presses, those ideas don't hold them. Because ideas are light, experience has weight. You can understand hunger perfectly and still feel weak. You can understand rest and still feel tired. Contact is different. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't announce arrival. It's quiet. And once you notice the difference, it's hard to unsee how much of life is lived just outside of it. Why does it always feel reasonable to wait? Not to avoid, just to postpone. I'll slow down after this quarter. I'll look at that when things settle. Right now isn't the time. These aren't excuses, they're practical, they sound responsible. Look at how everyday life rewards this. Calendars get praised for being full, quick replies signal reliability. Being on is treated like maturity. So attention learns to stay outward, on tasks, on people, on what's next. Even rest becomes a project, scheduled, optimized, measured. And anything that doesn't produce an immediate result quietly gets pushed aside, not rejected, just delayed. Here's the subtle part. Delay doesn't feel like a choice, it feels like neutrality, like nothing is being decided. But over time, something forms, a habit of staying just slightly ahead of yourself, always leaning forward. Then one day, there's a pause you didn't plan, a health scare, a sudden change, a stretch of quiet you can't fill. And you notice how unfamiliar stillness feels, not uncomfortable, just strange. As if something important was always meant to happen there, but kept getting rescheduled. What actually gives way when life shifts? Not in dramatic stories, in ordinary ones. A role changes, a relationship loosens. The body doesn't recover the way it used to. Something that once defined your days quietly steps aside. From the outside, nothing looks broken. You still function, you still show up. But inside, there's a wobble, not panic. More like losing balance for a second on familiar stairs. People often think it's because something important was taken away, status, purpose, security. But notice something. Two people can face the same change, one adapts without hardening, the other feels unmoored, even resentful. It's not willpower, it's not optimism. It's what they had to stand on before the change happened. When life rearranges itself, it doesn't ask what you achieved. It asks how much weight you can hold without leaning on what's no longer there. That capacity isn't built during the moment of loss. It's revealed then. Which is why some breakdowns feel sudden, even though nothing sudden actually occurred. The collapse didn't start when things fell apart. It started much earlier, in the places that were never strengthened, because they didn't seem urgent at the time. That's a hard thing to notice, because until change arrives, everything appears to be working. What happens if you don't reach for an answer? Just for a moment. No fixing, no improving, no labeling what's going on inside. Think of a time when you were watching something simple, rain on a windshield, steam rising from a mug, the rhythm of footsteps on a sidewalk. In those moments, attention doesn't strain, it rests. You're still aware, maybe more than usual. But there's no commentary running ahead of experience. Now notice how rare that quality of attention is. Most of the time, awareness is leaning forward, interpreting, preparing, adjusting. That leaning is useful, it gets things done. But when it never turns off, everything becomes something to manage, even yourself. There's a different way of being present, not deeper, not special. Just not rushing past what's already here. When attention settles like that, reactions show themselves early, before they harden, before they take over. Nothing dramatic happens, no conclusion arrives. but the space to respond appears where there used to be only habit. And once you notice that space, it quietly raises a question. How much of your life has been lived one step ahead of itself? At some point, it becomes clear that comfort can be arranged, and life can be made smoother, without touching the part that actually meets change. That isn't a mistake, it's how civilization learned to work. The quiet risk is assuming that what comes next will take care of itself. Nothing needs to be rejected, nothing needs to be chased. There's just a small honesty available now, not later, not when things fall apart. Right here, in how you're sitting, in how you're breathing, in how quickly the mind wants to move on. If you stay with that for a few seconds longer than usual, you may notice something subtle strengthening, not an answer, a steadiness. And from there, the question that matters doesn't ask what you'll add to your life. It asks what you're no longer willing to leave undeveloped.